Good morning, folks. Welcome to the regular meeting, Danville Architectural Heritage Board, Wednesday, January 15th, 2020. It is 9:32, and we're duly called to order. First major item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the December 16th meeting, but I think with Miss Dana absent,
we'll move it to the next.
we can move that approval to the next.
Sir.
Is somebody taking minutes? Are you going to take minutes? You want me?
I can.
Bridget asked me to if
Okay,
Dana
good.
wasn't here.
Why don't we have? Why don't we have
Sorry
minutes?
to interrupt you, Tom.
Why don't we have minutes?
Dana is ill, and she has been ill most of the week, and was not able to do that.
Do we have a backup in case somebody gets ill that could do the minutes?
Well, she was at the meeting taking the minutes, so she has all the stuff. So no, we don't have a backup in that situation.
If she were to get hit by a truck, we could back up to the recording. And
No. My point is simply that there should be a backup. If somebody can't take minutes, there ought to be a backup for somebody to take minutes.
No, we have a backup for the minutes today. Yes, Tiffany's going to take
Okay.
those. I thought you meant if
She took minutes. She's just not here to present them.
I wanted to ask a question about the minutes, and but since they're not here, am I in order to ask a question?
Certainly.
Sure.
And since the commissioner's here, maybe he could fill us in. What was the rationale of you all reversing our decision on Gypsy Run? Which I'm glad you did, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm just curious why.
I was debating whether I should even show up or not today, but certainly I'm in support of this this board, and that's why I'm here. I think if you look at our minutes, you'll find out we went through several bullet points that were in one of the documents that we thought did clear the thing, and that's not out of any disrespect for this board. We just felt like we needed to take a fresh look at it, and we did. I think it really came down to the fact that it wasn't on a facade. It's on 4th Street. It's in the back, and it's very hard to see. I can appreciate your points that you can see it, even pieces of it, but we thought it was on the back. And also in your minutes, there was a vote that was unanimous to go forward without the name Gypsy Run on it. And so that was there, and then there was a subsequent vote against even having it at all. And we kind of went back to that first one and overturned your decision with the caveat that Gypsy Run would be painted over or somehow adjusted. So that was the minutes I read, and that's what it is.
Did you all refer back to the guidelines in what we have to operate under? Did you
We got
take the weight
everything.
of what the language is?
Well, we got it all, and
Okay.
we had the minutes, and then I spent a lot of time personally Sunday. I think my fellow commissioners read it all over. 2 commissioners actually walked down Broadway and came up with that. I can just, I can see it, but I really can't see it, and that sort of thing. So that's what we did.
I need clarification. I don't ever remember having a unanimous vote
No.
to approve the mural
Yeah,
without the name.
it came up from Mr. Bowling there that,
I think it
and you
died
guys
for
can
lack of a
take a look at
second.
those minutes. Unfortunately, you don't have them, but
Yeah, no. I mean, honestly,
It died for a lack of
it
Yeah,
died for a
and-
lack of a second. Nobody seconded because
well,
there was nothing unanimous that day.
The minutes we had, it was a motion by Mr. Bowling, a second by yourself, Mary, and then it passed unanimously.
That's
And
not
then
right.
another vote came up.
Where
so-
did you get the minutes?
Well, it came to me in my packet.
Since we don't have them, I would kind of question the accuracy of the
Well,
minutes
those are the
that don't
minutes I
exist.
had.
Well,
so-
I think there was one motion, and Mary did second the motion, but you changed your mind.
No. You
Oh,
and
I
I were
think so.
you and I were on the same page the whole time, but I didn't second your motion because I knew it wasn't going to pass.
Well, there was a second to
It
my
was the
motion.
November minutes, not the December.
So anyway, that's what I read, and if I read it incorrectly, then I did. But I'd
So
read
there was
that.
discussion beforehand. We need to have this clarified because there was discussion
makes-
beforehand saying, take off the name and it will meet our requirements. And there was some discussion saying, do we want to vote on that? For a second, there was no actual vote, because then John Updike stood up and it's like, this is what I see, and laid out enough argument that,
Yeah.
it was withdrawn, and so, yeah, there needs to be some detail. We need to correct that.
Yeah, well, if I misread it, I apologize. If it was misprinted, I can't help it, because I was a little confused by a vote taking place and a second one behind it that was different, so.
I think you make the right decision.
Is there any action going to be taken to help us? Because it makes us look bad if every time we make a decision and you're going to overturn us. Do you want to just?
It
take
does,
it
and I
away?
think that Commissioner Terry, she's very concerned about that. There was something that happened last year that never got followed through on, that's being questioned by the arts community here, and that was to create an advisory board just on public art.
Yeah.
And I think that would be good for all of us, and certainly somebody like Joni House should be on it, but certainly the arts community, because I think what came up in the first mural overturn was everybody views public art differently, and it's kind of tough, and yeah.
I think this one was more about the process of application wasn't appropriate. There was no review. They didn't apply. They weren't willing to compromise. So if it drills down to that, and you still are going to review it and overturn it, then we need to know, what do you want from us?
And I'll have to say, it's going to be very, very hard to do anything with these in the future, because
Yeah.
our batting average is 0 on these. So
Well,
I'm to the point of saying, can we just send them to the city commission and we'll just
Yeah.
defer upward?
You guys can correct me again once if I'm wrong, but the point was made that there has been several murals that have been approved by this board, more so than being appealed to the city commission. So I think your
But
work is
everyone we've
good.
turned down has been appealed and overridden.
Well, yeah, but the
I
ones
like
that didn't
that.
get appealed,
We're
you've
certainly not.
passed through. So you're not negative pro-art.
No, we
No,
want
we
it.
are definitely
I didn't
not
mean
negative.
pro-art, not negative public art, I'm sorry.
I like
We
that
shouldn't shoot the
question.
messenger. We really shouldn't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, we really do appreciate you having the nerve to show up today.
Thank you.
We appreciate that tremendously.
Well, it's okay. I think that certainly as we go through life, and most of you all know that, we want to work together. We can't be button heads. We've been criticized for button heads with the county a lot, but sometimes we just see things differently. That doesn't mean we shouldn't shake our hands and try to see things together the next time. So.
And I would just say, you read the minutes just fine, but there's some inaccuracy here, and I can't tell if it's because the motion passed is not supposed to be there. There should have been motion died or something like that, or withdrawn. So we will correct on that.
Well, that's the way I interpreted it, and so I thought,
you did
that's
fine.
kind of curious to me.
I think it's a clerical error.
And a board error, because apparently we approved these?
You did approve those at the December meeting, so.
Well, we appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Recognize John,
And-
question?
I'm going to wait till. I think it needs to be said that when we're appointed to this board, we serve at the pleasure of the city commission. And sometimes when they overturn us, I don't take that personally. That's their prerogative if they want to do that. I don't. Again, we've been turned down, but I think several times. But I think a lot of times you all support us, and I think sometimes we forget that we're here because of the city commission approved us to be here, and I think we need to respect that.
Okay. Thank you all. Keep up the good work, and we'll try to come together on more things than not. How's that?
Commissioner Terry wanted to be here, but to talk with you as well, but is not able to. But she said she would be happy to talk to any of you at any time about the decision. Also, we have a new city manager now, David Milliron, and he can't be here either, but he did want to say he's very process-oriented, and we will be looking at this process to see where we need to make some tweaks. We have several things, that we're looking towards. We have the certified local government grant where we're going to be going and looking at art, and that's probably going to be in April. We may have other discussions before then, but so this was already on our radar before this decision happened because we've had the previous decisions, so we knew we needed to discuss this. and work through it. You all have been saying that all along, that we knew this was going to be a challenge.
Is it worth a phone call to Vicki Berenberg to just see if she has any thoughts that we could discuss amongst us in the city on?
I'll let Johnny take that one.
I've talked to Vicki. I've talked to a lot of people. This is a problem that every community is facing right now.
Is it the process of going to the commission, politicizing kind of the?
It's not only the
Preservation.
process, it is just that art is so subjective that
Yeah.
there is no, we really get hung up on terms like the fabric of the community and the fabric of the district. There's no real definition that gives anybody any concrete guidance as to what the fabric that they're talking about. It's kind of subjective. It is up to you all to decide that fabric, and then the city commission as well. So I think what we need to start doing is probably coming up with some definitions within our own community and involving everybody, which is a discussion everybody's going to have. It'll have to be the arts community and you guys, all the historic people, and the city commission to try to work out what is a good guideline for what we feel the fabric of the community is, because that's where it's hung up at. And that's where it's hung up at everywhere. They had similar issues in Frankfurt. I talked to the guy right before my hiatus, and they were having all kinds of problems with it. So you guys are not alone, and it's not only in Kentucky, it's throughout the historic preservation community, because you have dynamic young downtowns that are growing, and we've got to figure out how to make all of that come together. And it's just very difficult because there's no national guidelines. So I am working on it, and hopefully we'll go to Cincinnati here probably in the 1st of April when the weather clears. I don't really want to schedule that for March because it might get nasty with the weather. But we could probably have some folks come and talk to you sooner than that if I can get them online.
Probably ought to be looking at those schedules, because I know some of the other professional folks here, my schedule probably through May is starting to
Ate
get
up,
socked
okay.
in
Well-
pretty heavy, so you better speak up quick.
I'm speaking up. When do you guys want to do it? I mean, we can go to Cincinnati sooner than later. The weather's really nasty in March, but we can do that.
Could we do it on a Friday?
Sure. I think we probably can. Let me shoot you guys some emails
Shoot some
about
dates out, and we
when
can
some
do a
dates
poll.
are.
You're going to do the workshop
be
the
my
next
one.
day, though?
Yeah, we can do that.
Are they wanting to do a Saturday workshop?
Yes, sir, Steve.
That may
Mr.
be-
Steve Hunter.
This might be out of line a little bit, but you mentioned the Heritage Council, and I'm sitting here, we're gonna go over the zoning ordinance in a minute. And I think it's interesting because there is no more process in this community. We have more than planning and zoning. Our board, we get appeals, we have hearings every month. I think the problem, sitting here as a layperson on your board, but what I do every day, I would not call the Heritage Council, and I'll tell you why. In my former job, I staffed this board. They worked under planning and zoning. Full-time staff worked for us. We had the same issues, and I brought that up. And I'm going to show you guys in a few minutes. The historic overlay is intertwined with the zoning ordinance. The sign ordinance and your ordinance, they're intertwined. The flaws we have with this issue are in your guidelines. The Heritage Council wrote them, or you got a grant, I get it. They're cookie cutter across the state. The problems that I see you're having are in your design guidelines. They need to be fixed. Joni and I have talked about that. You're not going to find another set because everyone's in the same place. What we need to do is tweak 6.3 in your guidelines. There's no measurements in there that can go before you to say, oh, here's the rule. You got too much gray, like she just defined, so you need to define it. We spent a year rewriting the zoning ordinance where we had gray, we defined it. What do we do about Airbnbs? Here's the rules. This wouldn't be a hard process if you put some measurable, defined benchmarks on how we're going to deal with public art. And I think this case was interesting to me personally, because in this situation where someone's painting a mural on a back patio that, let's just say there was some argument it could be visible, but if it's not visible from the public, how is it even public art? So in this case, simply painting a mural on the building downtown makes us go look at public art. What if it's not visible? It's just me painting the back of my garage or my building.
It'd be the same thing as painting the inside of your office.
It's the same thing as painting inside. It shouldn't even be in front of this board if it's
Correct.
But yet you have two different standards. You got one that says visible from the right of way, and another your ordinance says not visible. So most communities, they only do COAs if they're visible from the right of way or visible from the public. But yet you got a whole section on public art, and we've been talking on murals, but it could be a statue or some other art feature But if it's not in the public domain, why is it even subject to a COA?
Clearly, it was visible because the property owner spoke against it, so
I don't know. It's, once they put the fence up and it's the back patio of a bar, what if it's not visible? Why would they need the COA? I think in this case, it was gray because it had a sign on it, clearly. It was partially visible, but not visible from their frontage. Might be visible from back here if they cut the trees down. I mean, that's what, but most towns, it's gotta be visible from the roadway or its frontage.
And that was our old ordinance.
That was the
Yeah.
old ordinance, but the new
Nobody liked
guidelines
that.
don't say that.
Yeah.
The new guidelines now
Yeah.
don't say that. So I think Joni's right. The guidelines need a tweak, and I think they can be done in-house if the city manager saw fit. I think there could be some things put in there to give you all some measurements. Maybe there's a maximum size, the maintenance stuff y'all brought up. All these things ought to be better defined so that when you get one, you say, well, 6.3.9 says, that's what it says. And I think the sign section that you got is even grayer now that we've
I
defined the sign
agree with that. I
ordinance.
did not
Yes.
like that
It's very gray.
all along.
Yet we put several murals up that clearly are signs, but they're not signs. I mean, I don't think you're gonna find the answer in Cincinnati or any other town or the Heritage Council. I think it's something we need to drill down in our ordinance here local and put some verbiage in there that you guys see would be reasonable. It probably ought to start with this board.
I'll paraphrase, instead of being a follower, maybe we need to be a leader on this and
Put
get
the
the
stuff
correct
in there you
verbiage
want it
out
to
there.
say and get it in the guidelines. It would be easy to amend, very easy.
Well, first and then the gentleman, I just want to, I echo what he said, and part of being a leader also means including everybody in the conversation and
Sure.
saying, hey.
And that's what
is
this
we're
needs to
looking
be.
at.
what it
And
needs to be.
so, I would still say Heritage Council's gotta be in the mix,
Yeah.
and say, this is how we're dealing with these issues.
Well, but here's the thing. Let me tell you why I disagree with that.
Oh my
Because-
gosh, why do you disagree with it?
Because I've dealt with them, and when you go a little left of their cookie cutter guidelines, they push you back.
But we are
They
a
don't- well,
preservation board,
but
and
I
they are the
understand.
preservation.
But the
She's
zoning
on that
ordinance
board.
gives us the authority to do some wiggling, and I'll give you an example. We decided to tweak some things related to signage, and they didn't like it, and said, well, that's a little bit beyond, we said, but this is what we need. It's not that far left. In this case, and I'll give you an example, they like these appeals to go to the local government, and they tried to force us to do that. We thought the appeals ought to go to circuit court. We thought applications ought to look like planning and zoning applications. Fees ought to be paid. Applications ought to be signed. And the appeals process from the historic board I work for went straight to circuit court like every other zoning appeal does, which puts the bar up there and takes the politics out of it. But if our local city commission wants to be the appeal, then that's where it's gonna go. The Heritage Council actually encourages that process. Yet the circuit court approach is actually what's in the KRS for all zoning verbiage has to go to circuit court. And that makes applicants, I think, holds the due diligence a little higher. Now, the Heritage Council fought and fought and fought that COA should be appealed, and their own verbiage should go to the Board of Adjustments or the City Commission. And we were like, man, that just opens up political can of worms on all of these issues. It should go to court just like a Board of Adjustments appeal or any zoning appeal. They got hired lawyers, and it's gonna cost money. That puts the process insulated. And they fought and fought and fought with us on that, and we just said, we're gonna do it our way. And that's what we did, and it works because then you guys, your decision holds more weight, because if they don't like it, they literally have to file a brief in a courtroom.
It used to be that way.
And I'm telling you,
Yeah.
that's a high bar. That gets your decision heavier weighted.
It used to
It
be
takes
that way.
all the politics out of it.
That would be lovely. That still doesn't go back to the question of having a conversation with other people has never been a bad thing, and
Well,
building
sure,
consensus is
but the process.
usually the best
Yes.
way to go.
Yeah.
For longevity of the different things. And to address the question that was on before you spoke regarding when we could travel, the end of March and beginning of April are all the spring breaks around here, so please make sure you pay attention to those.
I'd like to go back to a question I had a while ago, verse him, before we get started on something else.
Yes, sir.
Steve, you mentioned a while ago that, and I missed it, about when you were in Bowling Green, this board here was under your.
It's one of my 7 boards I staffed. I have 2 here, but I had 7 there. One was the Historic Preservation Board, and the full-time staff were Planning Commission employees.
Was that,
And the city gave us money to fund it. It was no different. They just gave us the money And because,
How did it work down there different than up here? Was it smoother? Was it less?
well, we
cumbersome?
obviously had way more
Was
cases.
there less bureaucrats involved, or?
No, not really. What it is we had way more cases. We would probably have 6 to 10 COAs a month. There was full-time staff, full-time, and, you know, it just followed the same process. We had someone to record the minutes. We did our own TV, it was live on TV. So it just fit all the planning and zoning. So all 7 boards we had were basically treated the same. And we staffed them because, again, part of what you do is entrenched in the zoning ordinance. I'm gonna show you dozens of pages of the zoning ordinance that relates to what you all do.
Would you recommend that to have it?
No, I
so
would
it be
recommend
more
whatever.
Would it be more streamlined than it is now?
Not really, I don't think, because you got Joni, it doesn't matter whether they work here, work there. You're still the board, you're still appointed by the city, that's exactly the same. I think it's the city commission's prerogative, and the city manager would want to give guidance on that. I think it landed in our place because it had nowhere else to go, and that's just where it was. It could have been in the city, wouldn't have made a difference, not one bit. But it had more process in it because I think a bigger city just puts more process in stuff, especially with the application submittals. We also advertised all public hearings. We treated all COAs as public hearings, and every single one had to be put in the paper, and we put signs on properties like we do zone changes. So we had way more process than's here to give public notice too.
Thank you.
All right.
And just because you all see us up here passing the phone, it was actually an image of the mural that's on the back of Gypsy Run that was posted on Facebook. So I was like, you're seeing us look at this, it really, that's what it is.
With the reference that we are historically old instead of historically bold.
Well, I think too, Mary, you're right. We've got to get, if we are fundamentally looking at some guideline changes, which I agree with Steve, we need to be. This has been an ongoing issue since this started. We need to get everybody together, and there was some discussion. I think we gave a brief to the city commission many months ago, and at that time, they asked, if anybody has some ideas about what you want to do, put that forward. Nothing was submitted, nothing. And so it's kind of leaving everybody grasping for straws of actually how we get there. What we've got to do is get the Arts Commission, you guys, City Commission, all together in one room after we take this trip, or even before we take this trip. I've got to look at the wording of the grant, but we may be able to all get together before then, before you go to Cincinnati. And there's a place called Over the Rhine in Cincinnati that's very, very similar to Danville. And I've kind of drilled that down to what is appropriate there would probably be appropriate here, which will give you all a visual interpretation of how they handle it. Now, the process of how we get there, how we change these guidelines, we're going to have to come up with some definitions and make it measurable. And that is extremely tricky because I'm not sure that we're not getting into some freedom of speech issues when we get into that also. So, you know, we're going to have the city attorney involved in how we define these things. Yes.
If you all remember when we had this discussion, I think I kept saying we should not dictate content.
There's an issue with content.
I kept saying that
Right.
maybe we just dictate the manner of
Size.
which it's applied.
Right.
Exactly.
How it affects the building, what type of paint they're using.
Well, and that seems to be where the national standards are going.
But
They're not
Stephen-
really dealing with content.
Stephen Dexter said if you all don't dictate the content, who does? Do you remember that?
Right.
So here we are kind of back to that issue
We're trying to
again.
figure it out. And, you know, in some cities, they don't deal with content unless it is pornographic in nature or offensive. And they do have some measurable guidelines of what is pornographic, what is offensive. You know.
I've always said we're gonna get a Jesus mural somewhere, somebody's gonna bring in one, and then that's gonna be so controversial that.
Right, right.
And I use
So-
that as a safe example, but.
I hate to say this again, but it is a sticky wicket
Yeah.
that we are in. So Danville's going to have to decide what they want to see downtown, and that's going to have to be a voice of a lot of people. And then we are going to have to put measurable guidelines in to alleviate all of this back and forth.
Yeah.
So that what you guys say is a measurable guideline, the city commission understands is a measurable guideline, and the applicant understands what is a measurable guideline. And so we've got to move some vagueness
Okay.
away. And that's my intent, now that I'm back,
Back.
from vacation. So,
Well, we missed you.
Is a meeting in Cincinnati even relevant before we get all the players at the table? I mean, should not,
Well, it is not necessarily a meeting, Mr. Bowling. It's more of a tour to show you all what has been done in the district there and what is possibly applicable as
I guess my
far as.
question would be, should not we get all the players at the table and talk about this before we go?
You know, let me make sure that the language of the grant will not
Okay.
exclude that. If
Okay.
it does exclude it, and I'm thinking Vicki will have some leeway whether we do it before or after, I'm not sure that that matters tremendously, but let me make sure, because I don't want to get us procedurally crossed up
Okay.
with anything. But we have got to have this discussion, and we need to do it now before spring in particular comes around.
And again, we'll need to talk to the city manager and see how he wants this process, how he wants
Right.
this to go. And
Okay.
we just need to give him a few weeks. He just got here to kind of, but he was at the meeting the other night, he was at the meeting Monday night, so he got to hear all the conversation and stuff that was going on, so, stay tuned.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Whoever comes up with the dates, can we have a date with a couple of backup dates?
Oh, absolutely. What I want to do is, you know, I want to get a couple of speakers to come in and talk to you all, one locally and maybe one from someplace else that are also dealing with this. Frankfurt comes to mind in particular because they've had a real issue in Frankfurt. And they kind of looked at what we've been doing, and it's, again, it's all over the state trying to deal with this. But ultimately, it's going to have to be language derived from the players here in Danville of how you all want to handle it. It's a very local issue. We can look at Timbuktu and how they handle it may not have any way to deal with Danville and what people want here. But I think looking at that particular part of Cincinnati will give us an idea of how they've dealt with it on something that looks very similar to downtown Danville. So I think that'll be beneficial for all of us. And some of those are pretty cool, I have to say. And I am not an art critic by any
So,
means.
would it be safe to say that we could have this issue resolved by the end of the fiscal year? If we really work diligently to
Yes,
put something
absolutely.
forth?
Yeah, I mean, we need to, as Steve says, revise
Where are
those
you at?
bullet points within that section. And we don't need to have 100 of them, you know, some basic measurable guidelines. So, yeah, I think that's very doable.
But know that changing the design guidelines is very process-oriented. It has to come before city commission and planning and zoning, and so
Sure.
it's
But I
not
think-
just,
If we get our piece together to present to them, then
And I'm
process will
confident
take-
we've got two very good leaders in this with Joni and Steve to help us spearhead this thing.
Yeah.
So
Well, if we
I'm-
involve planning and zoning and we involve city commission in the basic discussions of what we're going to do, it should be able to help that, you know, process move along. If everybody's in agreement of what we want to see, I think we could probably move it along fairly quickly going through that process.
As
So, yeah.
one member up here, I would like to see, I would like to hear what the city commission has to say, what direction you all would like to see us go. It ultimately the buck stops with you all. And so I think what we need, as far as I'm concerned, what I'd like to know is, what do you all see in the community? Which way would you like for it to go with what we're talking about now? So I think that we need to hear from the city first, the mayor and the four commissioners. Or, you know, we don't want any art, or we want all types of art, or which way would you all like for us to go? I think that would help us an awful lot. So I think they need to be involved.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody's got to be involved. And it's just not, Mr. Bowen, an issue of do we want art or not. It is how do we measure it within the community. Bardstown does something very similar. They say all arts are signs, and it is this size, and that is it. And they don't deal with content at all. So, you know, there's that way to go. But there will have to be some agreement with the city commissioners of this is okay with us, because somebody's going to buck that. If we only say 12% of the building can be painted or 25%,
Right.
somebody's going to challenge that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
So we
there
just
is
talked about
that way to do it. All,
application.
yeah, all art is a sign, you know, and then there's many convoluted ways to do it. So we've got to figure out how we want to measure that, and that's what we're getting down to. I think everybody wants to see art in the community. We want a vibrant, young downtown that people enjoy to go. We've just got to figure out how to make everybody happy, and that's not always very easy.
Well, you know, we all want businesses to survive downtown. And we all
Absolutely.
encourage businesses to survive downtown, but the more burden we put on retail and businesses downtown, the more apt they're going to leave and go to the bypass or just close. So that has to be a major consideration, in my opinion.
It is, and within the downtown communities, you are starting to see an influx of young entrepreneurial business people. And they want to embellish their buildings and express their businesses. But you have to do it in a way to protect the historic fabric of the district. And it can be very tricky. But I think we've got a good baseline to start where they can actually go on the buildings and things of that nature. I don't think anybody wants to see anything painted on the front of one of the buildings on Main Street. So, you know, we can start from there and take it. And I think that would be agreeable to everybody. So I think we really have more in common than we have disunion. So I think it's quite doable. We've just got to start talking about it and get it done.
Very good. Move on to the next agenda item. Staff, adoption of goals. Sounds like we've been talking about it.
Yes. You know, that may be number one.
Let's put that on top. If that isn't on the list, let's make sure it's on there.
Well, what I've done is provided you guys a list of goals that we adopted last year and submitted into the report that went to the Kentucky Heritage Council. And that's what you have in front of you, our last year's goal. I think we did very well in obtaining all of these. But I think you're right. Instead of public education as being the last goal, I think we probably ought to move that to the first and specifically direct discussion about public art within the historic district overlay is maybe the number one goal, which would also be quite attainable and look pretty good on our report at the end of the year.
And did you all able to update the packets that were sent to the business? Because that honestly sounds like something that needs to be done annually. Nothing
Yeah.
is that?
No.
Well, now that you're back.
Now that I'm back. No, yeah, last year I apologize. I had to flee.
We did change the application, and we added some things in there, and added the, you know, things for the public art, different applications and things like that. So we did update some things and change the application itself for the COA.
Well, yes, we did do that, but to have sent it out to the businesses, no. And I will, it is one of my goals to actually get out and knock on doors and talk to folks, because there's a lot of, well, the building owner didn't tell me, I didn't know. And I think we could probably wave our flag as much as possible, but I've got to just get out there and knock on some doors and say, hey, we need to make sure, please tell people when they get into the historic district, if you're renting a building, you know, send them to this place and talk to that. And that's just me building that in the community, and I'm going to work on that.
I think through the years, we've even seen that from our sign companies. Some are very, very, here's what you need to do, here's the rules
Yeah.
here. And the other one will go, yeah, you tell me what to paint, and I'll put it up there.
Yeah.
And they never look at it.
I know. So overall, I think we've had a very successful year, and I'm pretty pleased with all of it. But if you guys we do have to adopt a new set of goals for the upcoming year that I do need to include in the report to the Heritage Council, which I'm working on right now. So I would ask you all to look at these, tell me what you like, keep, what you want to change, and we'll do that today, and I can get those updated and sent in.
I also wanted to point out, you've got to utilize social media to engage, and actually our Facebook page has been great. But at the Jitsu Run hearing, the owner made a comment that, well, he thought that Bridget knew because she follows our page and we post it on our Facebook page, and we all know that's not how Facebook works. We don't get to see everything from everybody. And so I don't know if we need to have guidelines like, just because, you know, I know we're humans and we follow people and want to know what's going on, but they need to understand that that does not represent official communication.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I get stuff on Messenger,
Yeah, I'm sure.
and it's,
Me too.
I-
And you
don't
can't keep up
message
with
me.
everything.
Right. So, you know, I've just got to talk to people and tell them, you know, you've got to come and look at the guidelines. And I think we've been pretty good getting that out there as far as people being able to access those guidelines. They're easily accessible if you've got internet. And if you're on Facebook, you know how to work the internet. So, yeah, I hate that. I sent you something on Messenger.
Well, they did not send me
They
anything.
didn't say, no, they just posted about it.
Posted about
And
them, but
assumed she saw.
well, me and Steve, we have a program called Jumpstart that all the offices and stuff get with businesses. We sat down with them before they opened their business and went through every single aspect of the fact that they were in the historic district. So they were very well versed on what the rules were. So it was just, it should not have happened, but anyway, it happened, so we have to deal with it, but,
But just be aware from the point of the social media, how we can continue to drive people to the official social media.
and we have all of our stuff online on the website, so everything is accessible from anyone at any point, all our design guidelines, and we do try to utilize social media as much as possible.
So do we need anything on the goals now, or is this a continuing work in progress? Do you want some suggestions? I like that, moving the last to the top. And then add, does that need to be a goal that we're gonna work on 6.2 point? Pardon me if I got the
6.3
number wrong, but
Yes, I think that'd be perfectly acceptable
I
to
think
put
that
in the
needs to
goals.
be toward the top of it,
Okay.
if not the top of the list, but pretty much up there.
So that's number one,
Yeah,
okay?
that's probably the biggest problem facing us. Everything else works pretty smooth.
It does, and to be honest with you, it's gonna take some work to get that done.
And most people forget the staff approval process that we didn't used to have, which has streamlined this process
Yeah, it has.
98% for most of the
Considerably.
residents of the city. It's a non-event now.
I believe that all of your goals are good and
Okay.
will be workable for next year unless you all have some disagreement with that. And I can certainly move the last to the first and reference that particular part of the guidelines with Art in that. I don't have I can't say the wording right off my head, but I can certainly come up with something.
I'd like to see something added to the one at the top. It says, provide property and business owners with information on the DAB and request feedback from them on the do's,
Okay.
their do's and don'ts. I'd like to see that added in there.
That's quite easy if
I
you
think
all.
if you tell me you're gonna give me something, then you say, John, I want a reply from you. I wanna know what your thoughts are.
Okay,
Tell me up or down. You agree or you don't agree, or where are you? And that kind of puts some responsibility back on them, that they've got to get back in touch with you all also.
not a problem. If that's agreeable to you all, I can certainly add that to it. I don't think we have to vote on that. I think you just say, that sounds good.
Unless somebody has a major problem with something that's on there.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I didn't do that.
No, okay.
Yes. All right.
Are we good?
Do we need a motion on that, or can we?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I didn't think so. but
No.
As long as you have consensus and we don't have anybody that's upset.
Okay.
Okay, I will get that done and put that in the report. I'll have the report for you guys the next time we meet, so.
And do we need more discussion on the CLG grant?
Yes.
Well,
This
that's
is
the
the application
upcoming
for the next year.
grant. So, I went over to see Dustin Duvall and spoke to Lisa Thompson at the Heritage Council, who works on a lot of the National Register stuff, and came up with a couple, one of which is a feasibility study for the church on Third Street. This would be a feasibility study for adaptive reuse.
Which church?
The Methodist?
Yes,
The old
it's the the Methodist Church on Third Street. Now,
Well, there is two churches, I'm saying.
no, I believe it's the Methodist Church there. And then the other one which is the easiest one to do, and maybe the one that we ought to look at, considering we've got quite a task the first 6 months of the year. Survey work in National Register District for Broadway. You've got a lot of, it's already a National Register District, but a lot of buildings are old. The surveys are old on them, and there's a lot of buildings that don't have surveys. And that's pretty much a given.
Are you talking West Broadway, East Broadway?
It would be to Lexington Avenue. So you're going from downtown to Lexington Avenue.
Would that
Broadway?
include Lexington Avenue?
It doesn't hit,
I'm sorry, I was out of order.
It's the National Register District for Broadway.
Okay.
And so then I guess as it goes up, because there's another National Register District on Lexington Avenue, so I guess it's where it would butt into each other. The districts are already set.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of holes in the surveys, which means you may have one building, but you don't have the other building surveyed.
yeah, they were done in 83, I think.
Yeah, they're old, and there's some donut holes in there, and
Oh.
that's pretty easy. That's hiring a firm to get it
Actually, I think
done.
it's the Lexington Broadway Historic District.
I think you're right,
I
yeah.
think it's combined.
There's 7 of them, so.
Yeah, I think it's
get-
Lexington Broadway.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
And there's some holes in there that could, that's a easy grant to get and
Yeah.
do, and doesn't require a tremendous amount of work, but would provide the city, a great deal of good, especially one historic preservation coordinator. So, I think the feasibility study would be good also, but that might be biting off a bit this year to get done if we're really seriously gonna look at changing guidelines and stuff. The other one would be needed and frankly easier.
I got a question to Joni. What's the criteria to get into the historic district?
Well, if it's already an established historic district, all of the buildings themselves are considered, unless there's something really wrong with them, in that district contributing factors. So if you have a building, you don't have to have it individually listed. If you have to have a building individually listed, Danville has a process where we can make something a standalone historic site, like we did for the Willis Russell Memorial Cabin, and I think Julie's house over here. Those are both standalone. And it has to meet specific criteria for the national criteria. Is it architecturally significant? Is it archaeologically significant? There's 4 or 5 different criteria. So if we wanted to make a house out into Danville that's architecturally significant, we could nominate that through the National Register process. And then you all have a process whereby we can make it a standalone national or standalone landmark for Danville.
So I'm getting a bit personal here when I say this. So if we wanted to get our house into, what's the process?
Well, I'm not exact.
Are you asking national or local?
Are you wanting the historic
Not-
district
not the-
overlay, or
not
you
the
want on the
national.
national register?
Not the national.
He's talking about putting it in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, that you just go through the process here. You nominate it,
You request-
write a letter,
You
yeah,
request it with
file it
us.
with us and get it through there.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that,
I'm gonna go through that in a minute.
yeah, I would have to look and see. You all may already be in one of the national
Maple
districts.
John
Avenue,
is,
Maple
yeah.
Avenue,
Yeah.
Maple Avenue.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
the national.
Yeah, you're on it, and so it would be very easy to walk that into a standalone landmark here. That'd be easy to do. So if you would send us a letter saying you want that done, then we can start that
We gotta
process.
file an application through
I have to
Okay.
talk with the lady who owns it first.
I understand that. That's probably a good idea. But that's pretty simple process. We could get you done.
And the reason I say that, we just joined the Boyle Landmark Trust, and so we're supporting that. And
Fantastic. We can do that. We can certainly do that. So,
Okay.
but once it gets into that landmark status, you have to understand that things apply to it within the process here.
I understand.
Okay? I just want to make sure.
Right now, you can do anything you want to the outside of your house, but if you go in under us, then you can't anymore. You have to go before us. That's
sure.
the,
Right.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
that's okay.
trade-off.
like Broadway is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
So I guess my question to you all is, which one of these looks good to you?
I think a resurvey looks fantastic. That's my personal vote.
I think it has to be done. Not only look good, I
Yeah.
think it has to be done.
Okay, that's quite some, do we need a motion or?
No.
Okay.
No, because we're gonna. We will bring back the actual application and stuff at the next meeting for you to approve, and then we will take it to the city commission for them to approve. The grant's due in, I think, March 5th.
And this is the 60/40. We get 60,
Yes,
the
the
city
city
puts in
has to-
40?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why we have to take it to city commission for approval. And we'll also have to take this through David and let him take a look at it as well, so.
Right, and we'll use that 40%, we'll get some folks to help volunteer to do those surveys and stuff, so we should be able to cover that 40% pretty easy. But I'll get that done for the next meeting, and we'll take a look at it. If that's the way you all want to go, we're good.
All right. Time to move on to the next topic.
Yes, sir.
Next agenda item. Mr. Hunter, you're back in the barrel.
Knock this out real quick. So
Yes,
you all
sir.
have a packet in front of you. Mayor May. And there's one at Stephen's desk. Rick, if you wanted one, I guess, there's an extra one. But I think this is interesting, perfect timing, because when I'm going to show you what's in the zoning ordinance, shows how you guys are intertwined in our book, and the processes legally are connected. It's interesting, y'all just mentioned the surveys. When I was in Warren County, we did those annual, not through the grant, but we tried to do as many as 5,000 parcels a year, do the surveys. We had full-time staff to go out and do those, digitize those, GPS map those, and link those then to the parcel layer in the PVA's office. So we did those constantly too, because we saw that no different than mapping zoning. If you're gonna map the zoning, we might as well map everything about the properties at the same time.
What's the purpose of that?
So we'd have a complete survey we had 50,000 parcels in the county, and we were a county-wide historic board. So eventually we wanted every single parcel surveyed in case it was ever demoed. Even if you tore an old house down out in the county, it was 30 years old, we still wanted to have a survey form on all 50,000 parcels. So the goal was to do 5,000 a year over 10 years, and eventually you have every single structure in the county surveyed, whether it was historic or not, for demolition issues and future references, as well as the historic downtown. There were 7 historic districts, and then 2,000, I think, individual national district or sites. We wanted them all surveyed. The grant was too slow, because you only get such a small amount of money, so we just took on 5,000 parcels. That was a full-time position, just to do surveying annually. Because it's important to have those surveys complete in case someone, there's buildings all over this county now that are meeting the threshold of 50 years or older. Lisa Avenue, some of these older homes would qualify as a National Register product, because it's the 50-year mark. Ranch houses, out in the county too. So the inventory, everything's important, whether it's in a district or not, we thought so. Well, let's roll through this real quick in our reference page number. So you're going to get a lot more than just signs, because it kind of ties together, and I want to show you guys some unique stuff. I just brought the pages that relate to this board. Every one of these pages tie into you guys somehow that are in our book that's been passed now by all 4 governments. The addendum to your design guidelines is actually on signs is now inaccurate too. That's something else we need to fix, because we totally changed the sign ordinance. It's reorganized, and I'm gonna walk you through that. I put the cover on here for a reason, just to show you this went into effect January 1 in Danville. The zoning ordinance was completely rewritten, all 400 and some pages. 18 articles were condensed into 7. It's all reorganized, so it's a brand new document, but technically it's an amendment of the 2004 document. So the first page, I'm going to reference page numbers. I'm going to skip that table of contents. If you look at page 1-5 at the bottom, let me know when you get there. This is interesting because chapter 1 of the zoning ordinance is the general provisions, stuff like thou shalt follow zoning law and blah, blah, blah. But it also has all the parties are now in there. The Planning Commission, the Board of Adjustment. This is your page because right at the top there you see Planning Commission Director. I'm a component of that. The building inspector, even though he doesn't work for the Planning Commission, he's tied in with how we do things in zoning. And of course, you guys are part of this because there wouldn't be a historic board without a historic district. You created a boundary, you created a board, and it's all in the zoning ordinance. It's where your legal authority lies, as well as a standalone city ordinance. And there's some conflicts, by the way, between those two things, and always have been. But there's at the bottom, 1.12.5 says you're a board. The old zoning ordinance had your old name in it, whatever that was. There's your duties and responsibilities. A lot of this came right out of your bylaws. Next page is your membership, term of office, jurisdiction. Not much there, but that just lets the reader know that, hey, we have a historic element in our community. We have an architectural review board, but you are part of the zoning process as we think about the zoning map in the overlay district. So there's your board. And again, a lot of this came out of your bylaws or out of your actual ordinance, your enacting ordinance. Yes, sir.
I got a question. On page 1.5, under 12.3, number 4, review building, paving, sign, zoning permits. Why would you have paving in there?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because you build a parking lot over here one day. It's actually in a historic district. We've built parking lots. The zoning permits historically were just buildings. So if you put a building up, I'm looking at the zoning permit. But if a building's torn down and someone wants to pave 4 corners of a lot, it wasn't triggered by the paving. So now we have a paving only permit because we're not going to get landscape compliance if I never see anything. So someone could tear a building down on the bypass and pave, Walmart could pave another 5 acres behind there. they're not building the building, so there was no oversight through a permit, no building permit, no zoning permit, because no box is going up, yet they paved 3 acres of parking. How are we going to get in compliance with the landscape ordinance? Now they're required to come in and do a paving-only permit.
Is there a timetable? Is there a timetable on all this?
This went in effect in January, but we reviewed, the church on Lexington Avenue just paved a new in addition to the parking lot. That's the first one that came in under the new rules.
I'd like to relay a question that was.
The reason is, how are we going to catch landscape compliance for
Well,
parking
I
only without a
concur.
paving permit? Yeah.
I'd like to pass a question on that was passed to me. When is the city going to proceed to do something about the vacant lot on Main Street that you all tore down? What's the timetable on?
Well, that's not part of my stuff. That's
Since the commissioner's here, can you give us any insight?
You mean on the fire station?
The fire station.
They're doing geological stuff first. It has to happen before they can move forward with any.
So that's an appropriate.
And architectural
answer.
stuff, I
Yeah.
believe, are in that phase.
Yeah.
There's a lot of due
Yeah,
diligence.
there is work going on, even though it doesn't look like anything's happening.
Core
They
drill
are-
and
That's right.
testing.
That's
Yeah,
right.
they are working on stuff to
Okay.
prepare that site, so
Okay.
they have a timeline that the city
Well,
engineer's office.
Thanks for the answer. Appreciate
Who knows? I
Okay.
mean, it just goes.
Good deal.
Unfortunately, it takes a
Back
while
to
to
your
get this going.
schedule.
Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, I wanted to show you guys, or you guys are in our book. So if you turn to the next page, I think it's interesting. This is our definitions. The definition pages, you're gonna see I'm gonna put my glasses on, 2-10. There's actually 30 pages of definitions. Only 2 are in our book relate to you guys. And they're the same as they always have been, what a historic district is and what a historic site is. The difference is the district is the big boundary, but as Joni just mentioned, someone can come in and do an individual site, like we did the Rhodes and Montgomery House. You can come in and someone could apply, it's interesting, I don't know, let's say it's on, I don't know, some street past Lee's out there, or AutoZone. Someone could come in and say, I'd like to have my building put on as a local site. It doesn't have to be a contiguous boundary. It doesn't have to touch the boundary we have. Someone could apply to become a local site. I'll say Nancy Davis's house. That'd be a good one, because that's probably someone that wouldn't do that. But she could actually come and say, hey, I want my farmhouse to become a local historic site. And they can make application, like she just indicated. It would start with you guys to review, but they'd have to file an application to amend the map, because it's a zoning layer, technically. The historic district lays on top of the base zoning. It's called an overlay district. They'd make application with us. We would give it to Joni to review. You all would comment on it, but then the application, the formal hearing would go through the planning commission, city commission, and eventually it becomes a local site. You would hope your map's all contiguous and it's all one big map, but you could end up having 50 sites all scattered over the city that fall under your jurisdiction if they come in as a local site. Kind of what you just asked about doing for your
So
property.
once you get in, what's a vehicle to get out?
Well, same process. Just like we changed zoning, you could come in, like, for example, and you guys talked about relevancy. We got a speedway in our historic district. We got a bank. We got what I'd call some non-contributing buildings, as you all know. If tomorrow the speedway, let's say, said, I'd like to be out, and you all said, you know, there's no reason they're in the district anyhow, they could make application to come out. You all would comment, the planning commission would have a hearing. You probably wouldn't do that on the big boundary, but at the fringe of your boundary, and if something wasn't in and there's nothing beyond it you see coming in, I could see moving one out. But if somebody asked to be out that's right in the middle, I would probably suspect you all would say that's not appropriate.
So who ultimately makes that decision?
It would go you all, planning commission, city commission, just like a zone change.
Thank you.
Exact same process. That's why this book's important, to show you how we tie in.
Thank you.
So there's your 2 definitions. There's not much more there. Turn the page, we get into Article 3. If you get to 323, Article 3 is our processes. And if at the very top of the page you see it's under that, it says Article 3, it says Development Review Procedures. Our new Article 3 is where zone changes are, Board of Adjustment, any kind of process, paving permits, zoning permits, everything now is in one chapter. And right here you see section 3-12 says local historic designation. This is exactly what you all just asked about. This is the process, A to Z, who can apply, how the public hearing's conducted. The fact that you guys have standards is down there in the bottom. 312.3 says there's Secretary of Interior standards, there's other local standards. The next page on 324 is the designation criteria. This came right out of your enacted ordinance that you already have. and then how the public hearing is conducted. So Article 3 is not really good stuff to talk about on that page, because that's the process of how we bring someone in. It's all paperwork and just public hearings, and that's how we bring a property in. You turn the page, I think it's interesting, on 325, we do have language in the zoning ordinance about COAs. We say that one's required. It is in the law. Not only is it in your design guidelines, it's in the zoning ordinance by law, and always has been. This used to be in a prior Article 17, now it's all in 3, and it says when it's required, and it says what's required: alterations, new construction, sign, fences, parking. Now, I took some liberties by putting parking and fences. Some of that may not be caught by your design guidelines, especially in a commercial sense, because there's nothing really in there. But the zoning ordinance historically has always said these things. If, for example, a commercial entity, if Speedway wanted to put a fence up behind their dumpster, technically that needs a COA under the zoning ordinance. Not sure your guidelines would say that's a COA for a screening or doors on front of the dumpster. Under this book, any fences, any kind of signs, everything requires a COA.
I'm pretty sure.
That's A to Z. Well, your guidelines, when you look at it, don't actually say that, and I'll tell you why. Your guidelines talk about existing residential, new residential, existing commercial, new commercial. If Speedway decided to build it, let's say their dumpster's not there, they decide to build a new enclosure, that's new construction, and your guidelines have zero verbiage about how you build new construction in commercial. Talks about what we do for an existing commercial building. That's a different section of your guidelines. But if it's new construction, it talks about the rhythm of the buildings, assume someone's building the building. There's zero guidance about parking, screening, dumpsters, other things that happen on a commercial lot. There's zero guidance. It has to be an existing building. The new commercial section almost is just a paragraph in your guidelines. But the zoning ordinance says everything that gets built or tore down comes through you guys. So it's important to know it's in our law, then it defers then to your guidelines on what the rules are. So let's turn to Article 4, and this is where I'll go quick here. This gets into the sign ordinance, and I want to show you it's got a little more complicated. Before I start that, though, I want to mention something that's kind of important. There was a Supreme Court case, and that we've had to change the sign ordinance because it's a Supreme Court directive. And it gets to the questions you all just talked about with your mural. The Supreme Court has ruled that if you have to read a sign to know what the rules are, then it's a violation of the First Amendment, and it's illegal. So in 2013, the Supreme Court ruled, thou shalt have no rules in your community that violate this directive. And what that means is you can't have rules for a church, and rules for a daycare, and rules for a shopping center, and then rules in the historic district. Thou shalt have generic rules that are called content neutral, which means the sign content can't be regulated. Only thing can be regulated is how big, how boxy, how far back off the property line. Zoning has no authority to regulate content. Now, content, you think, well, I'm reading the sign, but what they interpreted was, because a church filed this action and went to Supreme Court, a community in Arizona had rules for a church, had rules for LED signs in the shopping center, we had rules for nonprofits, for daycares, specific rules. Daycares do this with their signs. The court ruled, doesn't matter what's on the sign. The fact that you have rules specific to a daycare is a violation of that First Amendment. So you can't have rules specific to a use that generic. So our new ordinance is real broad. Residential rules, multifamily rules, commercial rules, industrial rules. No longer are there historic district rules. So the base zoning is there, and we do sort of say how big, how high in different zoning districts, but no longer do we have rules specific to the historic district. That'd be a violation of that Supreme Court directive. Can't do it. The reason you're looking at page 4 here is to show you how many zoning districts we have. And in your district, you have several of these, most of which is the CB district. Used to be called downtown. We've changed it to central business. You've got central business. You've got R1A. You've got RM2. You've got RM3. And, of course, you historics down there at the bottom. HD is the historic layer. So you've got different zoning. So in the future, if you look up the sign ordinance, you got to go to the zoning district and then see the rules. There won't be specific rules, and your historic rules were like 8 pages long in the old ordinance. The old sign ordinance was 29 pages long. It's now 7 because it's generic. And I'm going to show you where these sign rules fall, but you got to realize there won't say anything about the historic district except one paragraph. we'll be in the R1 district or the RM2 district, and it'll say what the rules are. And that's what the Supreme Court directive made us do. This model was based off the KLC ordinance because communities are getting sued right now. ACLU lawyers are traveling around the country. We got one that came here, made a threat when I first got here, said change that sign ordinance or we'll sue the city of Danville. They're doing it all over the state of Kentucky, all over the country. The Supreme Court directive said if you have to read the sign to know the rules, it's a violation. Content neutral only. And now lawyers are suing cities all over the country. KLC's been warning cities in Kentucky, get your sign ordinance fixed. And that was the reason I started fixing the zoning ordinance, and we ended up rewriting the whole thing. It's going to be a problem for some cities if they don't get this going. We now think our sign ordinance meets that test, and we're comfortable with it. And at the same time, we bumped some heights up, we lowered some heights, we made some bigger, smaller, took some liberties there, but we got it in content with that generic process. So if you turn to page 4-11, look at the very top of the page, and this is how you know you're in the single-family residential area now. So in single-family zones, which by the way is 5 different districts, signs is item D, and you can see there's not much there. It basically says under that number 1, signs in single-family have a maximum of 1 mailbox sign or 1 limited wall sign. Now what signs would there ever be in a single-family district? Well, someone could have got a conditional use to have a beauty shop or a daycare, or maybe they're doing woodworking or hobby making. So there could be a sign, but normally you wouldn't think there would be any signs in a single family zone, but there could be some businesses that are approved under home occupations. And they're very limited.
So there's no height limit on flagpoles.
You can't do flagpoles in a single family zone. We're in single family zone. The only sign you can do is a wall sign or a mailbox sign.
All right.
But that would be for a business that, obviously the only thing you can do in single families live there. Why would there be a sign? Well, let's say you got a CUP to run a hair salon in your house, which is allowable. You would probably have a mailbox sign. No pole signs are ever going to happen in single family. So you flip the page, let's talk about what other kind of signs. So historically, what other kind of signs would be in a single family zone?
What page are you on now?
Very next one, 412. At the very top where it says temporary. What other signs did we used to have? Campaign signs, real estate signs, yard sale signs, freedom of speech signs. I love the Wildcats, go Cardinals, whatever. Those are things people put out, and there were rules. We had rules specific for campaign signs. That's one of the changes. You can't have rules for campaign signs because that would be not content neutral.
Do you have rules for yard sale signs?
No. Right there's your sign, right there. Everything now is called temporary on-premise signs. So what's a temporary on-premise sign? It's that right there. We don't say what it is because we can't say what it is, but we say 2 things.
So it's still, excuse me for interrupting, so it's still legal to put yard sale signs on telephone poles?
No, that's in the right of way, and I was right here, number A.
Okay.
You're running ahead of me all the time because you know all this stuff. Number A says right there, can't have them in the right of way. So whatever kind of temporary sign may exist in our universe can't be in the right of way, can't be in the site triangle, and B says it can't be bigger than 4 square feet. So that's new. So campaign signs are limited to 4 square feet. Yard sale signs, no bigger than 4 square feet. I love the Wildcats. Whatever sign may exist in this district is now capped in size and capped in location. Has to be on your property, can't be in the right of way. And campaign signs are limited to 4 square feet. Now, we made them bigger in the.
4x8s are not legal.
Not legal anymore. Made them smaller.
Okay.
And
That's countywide?
No, county bumped them up bigger, 16 square feet. In the ag zone. Single family, this is the rule for single family, but I didn't show you agriculture because we don't have a lot of agriculture in the county. County's a lot of agriculture. They made that number 16 square feet. So they can be 2x8s or 4x4s or whatever you want. Commercial district has no cap. So if it's commercially zoned, there's no cap on the size of those, other than the overall cap of 128 square feet. So they're now all in scale with the zone. In the single family zone, again, why would a campaign sign need to be bigger than a real estate sign or yard? We just can't say those words, but 4 square feet, which is, it's going to be a 2x2, might be on a little bit of a stand, so it might be this tall, this wide. I mean, it's a sign. What real estate, yard sale, whatever, that's the rule now. And that's all there is. But again, if you have this district in the historic layer, that's the rule for that too. And the commercial one's really what you guys are after. We're going to get to those real quick. So the next page is 422, and if you look at the very top, this is the multifamily zone. That's 3 different zoning districts, RM3, RM2, and RM4. Same exact verbiage you just saw, we won't go through it. If you got a conditional use for some kind of unique use, you might get a freestanding sign or a pole sign. And if you turn the page to the next one, 423, exact same paragraph as what the League of Cities recommended. We do not use the word campaign, real estate, daycare, church. We say temporary. So everything's either a permanent sign or a temporary sign in every single district. So we'll just move past multifamily because that's not something you
So
guys see a lot of.
Some signs, excuse me for interrupting, some signs that are already erected, that don't meet this, they're not grandfathered in?
They're all grandfathered. Everything's
Well, if
grandfathered.
they're temporary, they're not grandfathered.
Temporary is not grandfathered because they
But
should.
the permanent, I'm talking about permanent signs.
Everything permanent is grandfathered,
Gotcha. All right.
unfortunately, that's the way zoning works. Everything that's temporary should have never been out there longer than 60 days anyhow, so it should come into compliance fairly easy that way. So let's get to the big guy here, a big person, I guess. I need to be politically correct here.
Can I ask one quick
Yes, go
question?
ahead.
On this 4x4 temporary, is that one sign per parcel?
No, no.
So they could line the front
No,
of the
because
building?
that's exactly, gets back to that free speech thing. They might have that yard sale sign today, and it's election year, and have 19 campaign signs out there because they support 19 candidates. They might also have their I Love the Wildcat sign and my for sale sign. Probably the neighbor has the for sale sign, if there's
Yeah.
that many. But no, there's no limit in the cap either, because that would violate some
Sure.
free speech
Okay.
stuff too. Everybody's individual, but there has to be some reasonability. The other thing about the single-family zones, there's no permits required.
Okay.
It's free speech. We're not gonna regulate them other than the size and that they're on their property. No permits are even required for those. Because again, we didn't require permits for campaign signs or real
Right.
estate signs, nor would you. We did for a yard sale sign or that other kind of sign, whatever, but in this case, if it's single family, we'll just assume they're all temporary signs
So
of
local
whatever.
local events are,
Well, local events are tricky, and I'll tell you why. Technically, the ordinance says all signs are supposed to be on the property related to where the sign or activity is. We used to have this provision that nonprofits could scatter
Right.
signs all over this town, and they were in right-of-ways, but the sign ordinance is very streamlined, and I'm gonna show you that in a second. All signs have to be on premise. There is no allowance for any off-premise signs of any magnitude. But let's say you wanted to put a brass band.
right.
Again, I would call that a freedom of speech sign that you've put in your yard, and no one's gonna come tell you, take your sign down. But if Brass Band puts one in Kroger's parking lot, or puts one in the right-of-way, we got a problem. And we always did, because
Yeah.
you can't have off-premise signs. The only people that got to violate that rule were nonprofits and events. Yet McDonald's can't put an off-premise sign, Arby's can't put an off-premise sign.
But it's easy to become a nonprofit. It's real easy
So
to.
that got to the Supreme Court case because the case was based
makes
on
no
a
difference
church
now.
that put an event sign all over town. And the city had rules that you couldn't do it, and they sued under the free speech. So the way we're gonna have to treat that is I can't really regulate it as a brass band sign or a fish fry sign for the Catholic Church.
Right.
I've
It's
gotta
just a
stick to
sign.
the rules. And if the Catholic Church wants to put signs all over town, that's a violation because how can you put a business sign or an event sign on someone else's property?
So if Heart of Danville, I used to work there, I'll use
Yeah.
that, wanted to promote their music series and they wanted to put signs in the park,
Well, here's the thing, the
is
city's.
that a violation?
No, because the park's city property, they're exempt from zoning.
Okay.
Heart of Danville's a semi-government agency, they could probably do that, it's in the public good. We might talk to them and make sure they don't do it in the right of way. Then the way you get around all these rules, and I shouldn't tell you that, because media's here and we're recording, we don't want this in the paper, but technically it says you're not allowed to be in the right of way. But that is, it says without checking with the controlling jurisdiction. But you could go to KDOT or the city or the county and ask for permission to be in the right of way in a limited circumstance. And funny enough, the barbecue festival had signs out. They
Yeah.
went and asked the state, can we put them in their right? And since they were limited, so that's how you might do those, is it says none in the right of way, but in that case, maybe Heart of Danville goes and asks the city of Danville, hey, can we put one in the corner there?
I'm really thinking of the cherub sale that takes
That
place
one's
out
a
at the
problem.
Methodist church.
No, we
you know?
shut that down last year. That is completely a violation.
Huh.
And I'll tell you why. They put 96 signs out in the right-of-ways at intersections. That was not allowed in the old ordinance. And this last year, we met with them and said, you can't do that. They have to be on the property where the sale is.
And that's it?
And they, yeah.
So,
But
but a person, I could put it in my front yard.
some did, but technically, we're right back to, that was an event. The church is a nonprofit, but it's not also, no one lives there. The church put those all over saying, come to our event. How's that any different than if, you know, what's the one that put them all over? Not Hobby Lobby, the other one that's over there, Big Lots. Big Lots occasionally puts their signs
Yeah.
all over town saying, hey, we're having 90 off sale.
20% off, yeah.
20% off, whatever. How's that any different? They can't do it, but the church can. Okay, that's the problem, and that's where the
Okay.
Supreme Court went. You can't have rules that they get to do it, but they can't.
I'm just worried about our nonprofits. Is this going to impede their ability to
Well, there's other ways, and I
advertise?
talked to them, I met with them, and I told them, look, you put these little puny signs in an intersection. You got Facebook, you could put a 8x10 banner, you're on the busiest street in this county.
You got local radio.
You got radio, but they could put a banner up there under, as a temporary sign that's
Okay.
200 square foot, and everyone in this county would see it as we drive by the main road. The idea that they needed 96 signs scattered around this city at every intersection that distracts drivers, for example, or is in the right-of-way, that's not how we do sign in anyhow. Anyone else, people think they put that little yard sign and a stop
Yeah.
sign, and it does something. If anything, they get knocked over, they get mowed over. We picked a bunch up because they were all violations and impounded them, have given back. So this past year, they stuck about 10 of them across the property, and a couple people put them at their house. We never saw them, but that's they're gonna have to figure out a way. They did put some, they got permission to put one at Kroger's. They put a banner, I think, at Kroger's.
Yeah.
Or the barbecue festival did the same
Okay,
thing.
yeah.
That's a way that maybe you could partner with someone else in these nonprofits. Put it on their bulletin boards. We don't regulate signs inside glass, by the way. So you could put those signs at every restaurant in town inside the glass. It's not even an issue. So why we need to stick a yard sign all over it? I think that's just, they just got to think differently how to get the people out. But they could go around and stick one, Walmart, if people will give them permission, they could have one inside every single, we don't regulate signs in the glass, just on the glass. Yes, sir.
Are you going to address enforcement later?
Yeah, I'm gonna show you that. And we do it right now. We go out every Friday and pick up anything in the right-of-ways.
Question.
Yeah.
I can go around that real easy. Once you go home on Friday afternoon, I can put a
I
sign
know,
up.
I
Wait a
know.
minute, let me finish. I can put a sign up Friday afternoon, and
I
it
get it.
stays up to Monday morning.
Well, I'll work all weekend if you want me to, but you're gonna
No,
have to
that's
pay me
not,
overtime.
I'm not going there with
No,
that.
I know what you're saying. That's how they do it. That's actually how Big
So,
Lots
so
does it.
what's your plan to
Well, you
enforce
gotta,
it?
you gotta be smarter than the criminals out there, I guess. And so, to give you an example, Sunday I came into town, my wife was out of town, and I thought it was a good day to sneak her birthday present in the house. I was gonna go to Tractor Supply, and as I was driving in, I saw this, we're now hiring. Nesco puts them out everywhere. I got my truck, I picked up 6 or 7 on Sunday. Plus our zoning signs blew down for the distillery, so I wanted to put them up. So I happened to be in town on Sunday, and I picked up a dozen signs myself because I was in town. I see these signs in the right-of-way. If they're in the right-of-way in the median on 150 or on the bypass, we pick them up every week. If I'm in town on Sunday, I'm probably gonna pick it up, sling it over to the fence, and then come back and get it Monday. But I'm gonna take them down in the right-of-way if I see them. But I'm one guy doing enforcement, and I work Monday through Friday.
Which leads to what I'm gonna say, and I'm glad the Commissioner's here. And I kinda hate to go back to some years back, but when I was down here, we had that issue, okay?
Sure.
So the City Commission directed the city manager to direct the chief of police for his police officers to pick those signs
me
up
tell-
between Friday afternoon and
Let me
Monday
tell you why
morning.
they can't do it.
And it worked like clockwork.
Let me tell you why they can't do it. We used to do that
Wait
too.
a minute, so why can't we do that now?
Let me tell you, it's a legal issue.
Getting ready to tell you.
I'll tell you why. Because a sworn law enforcement officer can't confiscate some property without a
Due
process.
process.
I'm a code enforcement officer, so I
Oh.
can step in your yard and I can pick your sign up.
But we did it back then.
But law enforcement officers can't take people's property without, you'd have to impound them. You might need a warrant for some of these things to be on someone's property. You're talking about the right-of-way only. So
Yes, that's exactly.
here's the problem. If we took every Danville police officer and he jumped in the car with me and we drove out and we stopped somewhere and I said, tell me where the right-of-way is. Right here on Houstonville Road. Tell me where the right-of-way is and where the private property starts. No one knows that in this
But if they're,
township.
but I beg your pardon, if they're in the medium,
And the median's different.
Yeah.
That, we know that's right away, but as you go down Houstonville Road right now and you look at the signs, I do not pick up signs on private property, because I don't have the right, A, to be on your property, and B, I can't take someone's lawful asset.
has the
So-
law been changed since back the last 20 years?
There's been court cases that pushed all cities to push code enforcement officers. Code enforcement officers I'm not a sworn law enforcement, I'm a code enforcement officer. I have different rights, and the police officers are way above my pay grade. But they can't go in there and just take someone's property, throw it in the trunk. That's the that would be a huge liability, I think, for the community.
So do we only have, I don't want
Well,
to
let
beat
me
a
tell
dead,
you who
I don't want to
else-
beat a dead horse, but don't we have more than one code enforcement officer here?
You do, but so the code enforcement guys could, but we have other people driving. We got public works folks, we got planning folks, we got building inspectors. There could be a collaborative effort where we all get trained on what's a violation, but it is a zoning violation, so it's my job to do it. But I agree with you. We might have a public works guy that we could ask, hey, if you see these, but we'd have to train them to know where the right-of-way is. They can only pick up right-of-way signs, and we have to impound those signs for 30 days. Because if you wanted to come get your sign, I have to give your sign back. And then if we don't get any, they don't come back, we do throw them away. Especially these little yard signs. But we're mindful of what kind of sign we pick up. So I pick up a nice A-frame sign, it probably costs someone $100, they're probably going to get mad if that ends up in the dumpster. So I know which ones like we pick up that are sort of we fix hot tubs, we buy gold, they show up in our town, they put them all over, we pick them up, we impound them for 30 days. I steal the wire stuff off the bottom for my signs, and then we pitch them in the dumpster on the 31st day.
There's got to be a solution.
I understand.
There's
I
got to be a
understand.
solution to
Recycle.
rectify the
I
problem
understand, because they
between-
are going out on the weekend, but I don't think giving law enforcement officers that responsibility when they got so many more high-level things to do, and, you know, they're really at risk every day.
I'd like to make a comment that because this is such a large community-wide problem that John Bowling feels strongly about and has brought up many number of times, he needs to see about getting a group of concerned citizens together to go around and pick these things up. I'm
Boy.
sure that you all would be happy to
No,
train them.
I would have a problem
I'd
with
like
it
to
being private
respond,
citizens.
Oh, there
I'd
you
like to
go.
Well, let me
respond
tell you
to
why.
my-
It's because the zoning ordinance says, you're just gonna get to that. The enforcement provision that we're talking about ultimately is in KRS 100-991 and is in the zoning ordinance. I am the only zoning code enforcement officer under the
But
law.
if he did that, then he'd have to pick up
I
fast
can't
food trash, and he's
form a
opposed to that.
private militia out there or a bunch of citizens go
Well,
out and do
then
my job.
I
see what I
pull
mean?
back my suggestion.
I would like to respond to my seatmate.
Yeah.
That's why I pay my taxes, to have somebody else to do
Yeah.
that.
Now, if
I will also say, we are beating a dead horse.
Yeah, let's
and
keep
no
rolling here.
offense, I have a job.
Well, let's finish this up, because we ain't got the commercial, but real quick, if tomorrow there's a yard sale sign, as you keep bringing up on this pole, and that thing's gone tomorrow, it's gone tomorrow, you know, it's just one less I'm picking up. I don't know who takes them, but sometimes they just disappear, that's the reality of things.
Well, there's solutions to it, and
Yeah.
I'll talk to you.
We'll
after
talk about
this.
it. Let's get to this page here, 4-39. This is the commercial signs, and I'm gonna go through this pretty quick. The bottom of 439 tells us what signs require permits and what don't. In the commercial zone, now everything requires a permit. There's certain kind of signs that don't. Government signs, government flags, clocks, other things. But I want to go back to what you guys just talked about earlier. We define a sign as anything. Words don't matter. In the historic district, you guys are talking murals, you're talking letters. The rest of the planet, Starbucks logo has no letters on it, it's a sign. The mural on the tattoo shop is a sign. Everything's a sign under this definition, and it depends whether it's painted or boxed or framed. It blends with the letters, raised letters, not raised letters. We define signs differently. Everything's a sign. The paint on the Kroger canopy, if they just painted it and it's got a stripe, it's not a sign. When they put the Kroger logo on the paint, the whole facade became a sign. And we have measurable percentages on what they're allowed to do. Wall signs, window signs, canopy signs, freestanding signs, everything's a sign. And if you drive around tomorrow and start thinking like we do, lots of people got signs in this community that have no words on them. We measure them, we regulate them, we permit them. Everything needs a permit. They're either temporary, permanent, and they're so big, so high, so bulky. That's what we do. Now you have those same rules in your district that aren't specific to the historic district, it's specific to, now it's just the word commercial. So you've got multiple commercial zones here. You got highway commercial, you got central business, you got general business, you got a speedway, you got strip center, you got buildings, you got a drugstore. All of those are under commercial. Those are the rules. So I just want to let you know, everything requires a permit. Some things don't. They're government oriented. You turn to page 4-40, now we just have general rules for signs. This was probably 20 pages, and now it's one. General rules, I'll just point a few out. Number A says all signs have to comply to the table. I'm gonna show you that in a second. B talks about freestanding signs. C is wall signs. D is changeable letterboards. E deals with right-of-ways, site triangles. F is new, you have to be 10 foot off the edge of pavement, used to be 5. H says you have to be 25 foot from any single-family district. So even if you have a commercial business, if you're touching a single-family zone, your sign's no longer 10 foot, it's 25 foot to less the impact to a neighborhood. And then the bottom, we deal with foot candles on LED signs. We did not regulate or legislate out LED signs, so you can still have changeable signs. But we regulate how fast the message changes, because that's how you get rid of the flash. So now the message has to change, can only be so bright and has to change at a certain speed, or it becomes a distraction. So that's the general stuff, but this gets to temporary signs, and this is where you guys' heart rates are gonna get up a little bit. But on 441 under number L, we say temporary signs. You're gonna see the word temporary signs 3 times in commercial. And the simplest thing is there's a way you can do them with no permit, there's a way you can't do them, and there's a way you kinda can do them. This is the way you do them by right if you put them on the building. So if you want to put a banner, balloon, wind flag, sock, whatever that temporary sign is, anything, you can do it if it's on the building. But you can only do this 3 times a year for 30 days at a time. So if the tire business wants to put a rotation special, unfortunately, this opens up, the old rule said no banners in the historic district. Well, we can't have rules for the historic district. Now we just got rules for commercial. So technically, someone could do a banner in the historic district if it's on the facade of a building. I'm gonna say one thing you guys need to fix in your guidelines. You guys didn't do COAs for temporary signs. You only did it for permanent wall signs, window signs, and freestanding. I would recommend, since the zoning ordinance says all signs require a COA, you all need to specifically add temporary signs, and then you decide when these banners are appropriate or not appropriate based on the integrity of the building. And going to your point, how they're applied. In the window, fine. Non-conforming building, non-contributing, fine. Brick building with anchors or screws, probably a problem. But banners are not prohibited in the historic district any longer. We don't even say the word banner. We say things, banners, pennants, posters, flags, whatever they are, you can do them in a commercial zone if they're on the building, anywhere in this community. But they're limited, and it counts with your overall percentage. I'm gonna show you in a second.
Did we prohibit banners?
The old ordinance said banners were prohibited, but it didn't say yard signs. So what the interpretation was, any signs prohibited, but it said banners are prohibited.
Well, who decided to make them legal?
Well, we did.
Okay.
Well, because we can't have rules specific to your
Sure.
district. So
I'm just
how do
trying to
you,
understand.
and we always allowed them on commercial properties, on buildings. So how do you have a commercial rule that excludes the commercial businesses downtown without violating the Supreme Court directive? We gotta have one rule for commercial businesses. Whether in the historic district or not, doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's a community-wide commercial rule now. It applies to McDonald's and Walmart as well as Harvey's. It's based on the zoning district in the use category. That's a big change, major change. So then turn the page, and here's the chart. I think I'm on the chart. Yeah. No, turn 2 pages, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, I'm 442. It should be the chart. Looks like a chart.
Gotcha.
What was 10 pages in the old zoning ordinance is in this one chart. There's all your zoning districts across the top, and there's if you get a freestanding sign, how big? Do you get a wall sign? And here's the big thing. At the bottom, we had this convoluted wall sign verbiage. Look at those boxes across the bottom. We have one formula on how we do wall signs now. You get 10% or 96 square feet, whatever's greater. That's how we're gonna do Walmart, that's how we're gonna do Harvey's. You might get 5% or 96 square feet, whatever's greater. So by zoning district, we sort of deviated who's the 5%. We measure it by facade. So if there's a building, we measure the facade. You get 5% or 96 square feet, whatever's greater. We no longer try to regulate it by suite. Use the Sears building. You get 10% or 96. If Sears sucks up all the 10%, the nutrition center gets nothing. That's just the way it goes. The landlord's gonna have to figure out how the splits go. The shopping center out there on the bypass, 10%. But a facade turns, as you all know, so each facade gets 10% or 96 square feet. That way it's in scale with the building. Walmart's gonna get this. Our old rules were you got 64 square feet. How's that work on Walmart and how's that work on Starbucks? It's two different animals. So now it's just a percentage of the facade. And it's very simple, and that's how most of the country does wall signs. In your district though, again, you might have CB, you've got some HB, so you could have some signs, you could have freestanding signs, most of the downtown buildings don't have yards, but you could have a freestanding sign. This is where your guidelines now kick in. These are the basic zoning rules, but then yet you have sign rules in your guideline. The question is, how are you guys going to have specific rules that also don't violate that Supreme Court directive? Your rules can also not be specific to a particular use. Banks do this, drive-throughs do that. That's something we have to fix too, because your sign rules are kind of old school and this is how we do them. Yours need to be generic too, maybe to the architecture, let's say. But this is all the rules for the whole community right here.
I thought we took the new laws in
You
consideration.
you mirrored our old ordinance that we now have ditched. The sign section,
I thought we mirrored the new one.
oh no, you talk about hanging signs, pennant signs, wall signs, window signs, not more than 25% of the glass. You got all our old verbiage in there.
No. The comment was when we were doing ours, they hadn't changed theirs. We had to be in alignment with theirs.
And you matched ours.
And then, so we did but there was conversation of, if you change yours, we're gonna change ours.
We gotta change that again. And then you attached our whole document as an appendices to your document, so it needs to be fixed.
Okay.
So, and then real quick, I wanna get this done. So at the bottom of 442, look on number C, these are prohibited signs. And guess what pops up again? Banners, pennants, posters, flags, large balloons, similar devices. So anything that's out on the lot, not on the building, and it says, independent support, fence, awning, pump canopy, curbstone, lamp post, utility pole, hydrant, bridge, culvert, drinking fountain, anything out on the lot that's not on the building, that's a temporary sign, is prohibited. So again, let's use McDonald's. McDonald's wants to put a 99-cent McCafe, whatever, they can put it on the building. Put it out on the lot, can't do it. Nothing goes out there.
But you can do it after 5 o'clock on Friday.
There it is.
What about sandwich boards?
John, quit
No.
confusing me.
There was,
No.
we had so
No,
much discussion
Well, I'm gonna
about
give you the option C.
about sandwich boards.
So there was the how you do them on the building, here's the no, and if you turn the page, at the very bottom, here's the maybe. So all those kind of temporary signs at the bottom of 5 or 443, anything you guys can envision as temporary sign is optional as a temporary sign, whatever that is, but you can only do it 30 days at a time, 3 times a year, and you have to get a permit. Permits are $25. That was a strategic decision to make those temporary signs. So let's use your business, Mayor, Arby's. You want to put a sign on the building, any kind of banner in the window, have at it, it's your building. You want to put it out in the grass, in the parking lot, can't do it. You want to come get a $25 sign permit for 30 days, you can stick your signs anywhere you want on that property.
Why you charge me $25 for
It's a
it?
deterrent.
I-
Because let me tell you why. Let's use Speedway over here, and I hate to use them, but when the Mountain Dew guys show up and give them their verbiage, and they stick it on the canopy here, and they put one on the fence here, those are freebies. And they put them all over the lot, and we go tell them you can't have those signs on the lot. Now that they require a permit, A, we can measure the 30 days, but you can't have them longer than 30 days.
I concur. I
And
concur.
B, they're not gonna pay $25 for every one of those Mountain Dew signs. if the sign's important enough to, let's say, Bob Allen or Stuart Powell, and they want to put a big banner out there at the road and say Labor Day sale, they're going to come spend their $25. We're going to be able to measure the 30 days. But all these little piddly signs that end up at Minute Marts and gas stations and 5 Stars and McDonald's, this is a deterrent, really. So it's not like we did turn them loose. They got to have a permit. They're limited to 30 days, and it's $25. And we're going to go take them down.
Does the downtown businesses know that they can't have sandwich boards anymore?
I don't know what the downtown businesses
I'd
know,
ask you
because
that.
the zoning ordinance has been revised. What's interesting, though, let me say this. We did meet with every business. The chamber organized, you might have been there, Tom, I'm not sure, but the chamber organized, we met with several different groups on the sign ordinance.
Okay.
And the downtown business owners were invited. We met at Intercounty, and I think we had 60 people
We've been
there.
meeting on this for years.
So they
And
probably know then.
So some may not.
Okay.
I think we got more attendance from people that own businesses on the bypass. And by the way, no businesses objected to the new sign rules at all. And part of the reason is because we made the freestanding signs a little bigger, but we brought the heights down from 30 feet. I didn't point that out in the chart, but because none of this is in your district. But the old height was 30 feet. We brought it down to 24, but we bumped up the square footage as a trade-off to the businesses. And everyone said they were okay with it. No one pushed back, and we were meeting the Supreme Court directive. So let's get this done. I got a couple more pages. I know you guys need to go, but this is count for training, is what Joni said, so this will get you a solid 2 hours. Very next page, 445, and again, you guys were in commercial. I want to point out this paragraph, number 10.
445?
445, number 10. And this has always been in our ordinance. Off-premise signs, however you want to split it up, we got a definition. They are prohibited. No billboards. No off-premise signs other than consolidated shopping center signs, which is right below. And all that says is a big shopping center of 100,000 square feet or big can have a sign as close as 500 foot. It could technically be on the neighbor's property, but it has to be within 500 foot of the development. Those are big signs.
Yeah.
But in general, McDonald's can't put a sign off-site. Walmart can't have one out. If it's not their real estate, they can't have their sign off-premise. No billboards are allowed in this county. So this gets back to these other issues. How was it that no one else could have off-premise sign, but a specific church could go put signs all over town? Or a specific daycare or a specific event could let it? We've always said no off-premise signs. The message stays where the event, the business is happening. And it's always been that way. So we were told never to change that. Don't open up the door for billboards or anything of that net. So that's always been in the ordinance. So with that,
How did you, on page 445, under C, down the bottom, how did you all arrive at 30 feet?
because that's a consolidated shopping center sign, so those rules are you gotta first be zoned highway business. You gotta have at least 100,000 square foot of building.
I know, but why?
We
why
left
did
it
you
at the
pick
old-
out-
we
Why
left
did you
it-
pick out 29 feet?
We left it at the old number, 30 feet.
I see,
And we bumped, but the face is 200 square feet.
okay.
So the face is huge, because what we historically did in this town, we had that 100 square foot, so when we had these consolidated signs, they'd put all these puny little signs on, you couldn't read them. If you go further in this now, the panels have to be a certain size. If you want to do a consolidated sign for a shopping center, you're going to have to pick who gets on the sign, the still, whatever. We want them readable, and the panels have to be a certain size, and you can only have so many, so the landlord figures that out, who gets the hierarchy. But these days of having a 100-foot sign, calling the consolidated shopping center sign, and it's got 18, like Brandon's Crossings when you go up there, got all those logos, like you can't read a single one of them. It looks horrible. It's supposed to be every business gets a little footprint up there, and no one can read a one. Ours now says you can do this 200 square foot sign, 30 foot tall, has to meet the threshold of a shopping center. But then you turn the page and it says how big the letters have to be, how big the panels have to be. So we might only do 6, but they're all going to be legible. So this is possibly the most important thing I want to show you guys, and I hate it's at the bottom, but we took some liberties about something that you guys don't know about in your district, but this is totally, and I'll tell you why. Because your design guidelines don't do a certain thing, and this is a problem in our community. And I've seen it since the day I got here. I would question, and I know it's old, why we have a speedway in our historic district. I know why y'all built the bound. Most communities in the historic districts wouldn't allow a fast food drive-through, wouldn't allow vehicle repair. Your design guidelines say what you do to a building, but what you don't do is say what's not allowed in the historic district. What is the absolute laundry list of things we do not want in the historic district? You can do that in zoning. That's called prohibited uses. We do it in every zoning district. Here's what you can do in highway business. Here's what you can't do in office professional. We say you can't have a factory in a residential zone. We say exactly what uses go where. So in the historic overlay, that's the next page here, 4-59, we basically said there's some things we're never going to allow in a historic district in Danville, Kentucky. And there's things you guys would agree on. The first one says adult entertainment. That doesn't mean a senior center where they're eating meals and playing shuffleboard. But today, you couldn't stop someone from opening whatever, you know the definition of that. You could move one in a commercial building. Couldn't stop them. And that kills a historic district.
So-
that kills a downtown economic development. So these things,
So you're, excuse me for interrupting, so you're telling us that on 459,
these are prohibited
under
uses.
D, that if I wanted to put a restaurant downtown on Main Street, I
drive-through.
could not have a drive-through?
No drive-through, nor should they be, because your guidelines allude to that. No, drive-throughs in historic districts, no.
What
What
about
about
bank, what
banks?
about banks?
Yeah.
Well, good.
They have
you know,
drive-throughs.
I know they do now. They won't
discriminating?
in the future.
Are
But
you
here's the problem.
Are you discriminating against restaurants
We're
over
not-
banks or
Here's
what?
the thing is, we're not discriminating on signs. These are uses, and we've made the decision. Let me tell you why
I'm
drive-through.
just asking questions.
Well, I'm gonna tell you why. If tomorrow someone wanted to build a drive-through in your historic district, first off, going to what Joni knows, historically, there weren't drive-throughs, okay?
That's true.
They evolved over time. They're automobile-oriented. We've lost buildings. You don't typically see a building put a drive-through in. What you see is 5 buildings go down and you build a new bank with a drive-through. If someone tried to, the days we built that bank and that bank, we didn't have a historic district. But no historic districts in this state would have allowed such a use to come in because it's counterintuitive to the historic district.
Well, I don't
Doesn't-
disagree with you.
It doesn't have the mass. You're building more pavement.
Okay. What constitutes group living under 7 there?
Group living would be a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center, juvenile detention, transition home, law enforcement types. Group homes are basically fraternities, sororities, convalescent homes, things you don't want in your historic district.
You don't reference bank drive-throughs here?
We just say,
You
actually,
just have
funny he said
eating
that, we just say
established.
eating. And the reason that we didn't put banks in there, and I was getting ready to say that, is because we already got them.
Sure.
And we don't want to go there, but we're saying eating. So what that's prohibiting is tomorrow if Burger King wanted to come downtown, they're going to have to get out of the historic district or build us a Burger King that don't have a drive-through.
Okay.
Maybe that's possible, right?
Sure.
Put it in one of the shops downtown. Funny enough, go downtown Lexington. We've got some what would traditionally be fast food places that are in urban settings. They're in the building. There's just no drive-through.
Yeah, that's in most historic districts.
Not outlaw, yeah, exactly. These coincide with your design guidelines without, but let's get further down there. Indoor firing range, RV campgrounds, those wouldn't work. Vehicle equipment sales, guess what we got in our historic district? We got vehicle equipment sales right now. I'm saying no more. That's not good for your historic district, because something went away to provide a footprint to put bulldozers on the ground or sell manufactured homes. We don't want to see buildings go away, so we want to protect the integrity of the district. We got to limit some things. If I have a commercial zone piece of property right now, maybe I'm not in the district as I go down 3rd Street, but I have the right now to level everything and just have equipment for sale out there. You know, so that's one of the uses I think you guys would disagree with. Group living, and then turn the page. The other one's vehicle repair. I don't think you want any body shops or junky mechanic businesses. You don't want Jiffy Lubes. And then, of course, you don't want any cell towers. We got all of the above in our historic district, I think. What this does is says in a place and time, we're no longer allow those things in the historic district. That's prohibited uses. That's an add-on for your layer, because you're the overlay district, that we thought all that does is help insulate the district, hopefully keep the building stock there, and keep the uses we want in the district. Your district's only here, but you can imagine tomorrow somebody might do something, technically, without coming to you, because let's say they're not changing the building, someone could have said, you know, I'm gonna buy that building right there and start working on cars. Zone commercial, and the cars are in the lot, building looks ugly, put a shed out the back, maybe it needs a COA. but don't open the door to the vehicle repair, and then you don't end up with the things you don't want. So we stuck that in the overlay district because we thought that's the only way to protect certain things. Prohibited uses are a huge asset, and we use them all through the zoning ordinance. We say what you can't do in the residential zone.
So if that's in your ordinance, do we need it?
What I would suggest is every page that relates to the historic district, almost this whole thing, we just attach it to your document, and it becomes an addendum to your document.
Okay.
And they work together anyhow. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because we're an overlay.
We're an
We're an
overlay.
overlay of
That
that
was the
zoning
point I
district,
was
right,
You have
right.
adult entertainment. What about adult-oriented retail stores?
Adult entertainment in our definition
covered?
catches all retail too.
Okay, good.
Bookstores, there's no such thing as video places anymore, but historically what you would get would be bars or lounges or dancing but our definition is very broad. It covers the
So it
retail
covers
components
retail?
of things too.
Yeah.
So, hey, the last thing, and I'll stop, I took up too much time, but now there's a chart, the last few pages, every use in this county now is in a chart, and there's zoning across the top, the uses go down the hill. The Ps mean you can do it by right, the Cs mean you need a conditional use, and the blank means you can't do it. And we did put his HD at the edge, and as you know, without you all think about it, there's all kinds of things you can do in a historic district, but it's, every zone in our ordinance says what you can do, what you can't do. Light industrial, you can do this, highway business, you can do that. RM2, you can do a duplex, single family, you can't. So you guys don't ever see the zoning stuff, because if the building's not changing, you don't know what's happening inside. This is the chart that lays out everything in our county in 4 or 5 pages on where you do confined animal feeding, where you can do a crematorium, where you can do a cemetery, where you can do a daycare. It's now all in the chart. And P means you can do it, and asterisk means there's other rules, and a blank means you can't do it.
What about Airbnbs? Are we, I never,
Yeah, the city changed that, and that is
Okay.
actually on, and
Is
by
that
the way,
on
I've got one
5:30?
coming, I've got a meeting at 1 o'clock where we're having another one go in and down here on College Street, right across from the campus.
okay,
Airbnbs are on 5-3.
okay.
Airbnbs are still categorized as overnight accommodation. You see the
Okay,
third box that
yeah.
says overnight? So the city made it permitted by right in the ag district. It's conditional in rural residential, none of that's in the city. It's conditional in R1, which means you have to go before the Board of Adjustments. It's not permitted by right till you hit the RM3 district
Okay.
or commercial districts. So to do an Airbnb or short-term rental, you have to, you can do it out in the county, basically. But if you're in single-family zones, you need a conditional use permit. If you're in multifamily, have fun. If you're in commercial, that's where you need to be.
Because you have P under HD, so does that mean you can do it with a
Well,
permit?
the reason I put the P in there is because you have a vary in some Ps and some Cs, so in the
Okay.
HD, it really, the reason why it's a P, because most of the historic district is zoned commercial, and it's
Okay.
allowed in commercial.
Okay,
But there are 11 rules that go with having them now that go with that. That's why there's an
Okay.
asterisk related to parking, building permits, fire codes, lot of other issues. But we've got one today coming in at 1 o'clock. A lady's doing one on College Street. It's zoned single family. That's why she had to do a conditional use permit. But in the county, they're gonna amend that to not allow them by right in the county. They're gonna change the P to a C. They've changed their mind on that.
Okay.
Because we're getting a whole bunch of them up around the lake and they're being disruptive. So pretty much unless you're zoned commercial or multifamily, you can do it. Anything else is probably gonna have to come before the Board of Adjustments,
Unless it's grandfathered in.
unless it's grandfathered in. So that's exactly right. That's the other tricky thing about having 7 chapters of new zoning ordinance. Everything we do potentially is grandfathered in. Everything that's in our sphere of zoning technically is here before these rules change, it's grandfathered in. So you can't just tell someone no. You have to figure out when they did what they did and figure out they're under the overall, the 2004 ordinance, 2002, or the 98, or the 2020. So I know it took a lot of time, but I wanted to give you guys and show you the relationship here.
I may have
And-
more questions than I had before, but that's good.
And I'm gonna keep an eye on John. I'm gonna sneak out and put a GPS tracker on his car, because I think he's gonna put some signs out on us over the
I've got a
weekend here.
solution for you.
He's got a 40-footer he wants to put out.
Hey, y'all, I appreciate it.
thank
and
you.
Thank
You've done a
you.
very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
do a super job.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
You super job. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I want to talk to you before we leave.
Oh, my God, motion adjourned.
Any other, well, it wasn't, if it isn't on the agenda, we can't bring it up, so.
Oh, yeah, we can. It's ready.
regular meeting, that's true. Well, hush.
There's nothing else.
Nothing else?
No, sir.
I've had enough.
We have got a pocket full.
It's nice to have Joni back.
Yes.
It's nice to have Robin back. We've missed her for a few
Yeah.
times.
So you think if you missed that last meeting, then all of a sudden something happened at city commission, yeah?
You should have been here. Okay, motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
Let's do it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Woo, thank you.
Hey, thanks.